Foster care and marriage, 10 practical tips to help you prioritize your relationship. Hi, my name is Jen Avellaneda, and my husband and we've been married for 30 years. Of those 30 years, 16 of those years, we have been licensed foster parents. And so we have actually been foster parents in our marriage longer than we've actually been not foster parents. And along the way, we have learned a few things about foster care and marriage, prioritizing your relationship. And today I want to share some of those things with you. As a foster parent, prioritizing your marriage is so vital that if we don't focus on our marriage and our relationship first, our career as a foster carrier or as a foster provider will not last. And so today I want to share with you some tips that will help you as you become, or as you already are, a foster parent. And I don't know if you've been married for a long time or you just got married. I don't know if you have a relationship that is solid like a rock, or if you are kind of just wobbling along in your relationship with your spouse. But I believe these tips will help you as you navigate your journey as a foster parent today. I know they've helped me and my husband. Some of them we haven't done right. We've learned the hard way of what not to do. And so hopefully you can gain some wisdom just from our journey, and that will be helpful to you as you go through your process of becoming a licensed as foster parents. As you know, the statistics for relationships nowadays is kind of grim. The divorce rate for marriages who are not people who are fostering or who have adopted is about a 45% divorce rate when I'm taping this video. And so marriages are under a lot of stress for a lot of different reasons, but marriages who also are foster parents have added stress. Some of those things that create added stress is parenting kids from really hard places. There's a lot of trauma parenting that we do with kids that come into our home. There's a lot of behaviors and emotions and a lot of things that kids bring into our home that can strain the core relationship of a marriage. In addition, as a foster parent, there can be a lot of grief and loss that you deal with as a foster parent. As you know, becoming a foster parent means the goal of foster care is to reunify a child with their biological family when at all possible. And with that comes a lot of moves, a lot of transitions, a lot of loss of kids that you really care about and you really grow to love as they've been in your home. And lastly, just the time that it takes to foster, to have kids in your home, the amount of appointments and therapies and schedules and visits and things that your kids do that keep you so busy that sometimes that can create a limited amount of time between you and your spouse. And that can put an added strain on your relationship. So let's jump into 10 practical tips to help your relationship as you become a foster parent. But before we do, I just want to invite you to subscribe to this page. If there is anything about this content that interests you or that you like or find helpful, make sure to go ahead and share that with your community or with your friend group or your family. Also like this page and give it a thumbs up. It helps really for me to be able to create more content for you. So let's get started. So the first tip to help you to prioritize your relationship as you become a foster parent, I'm just going to jump right in. I'm not going to save the best for the last. In fact, I'm going to jump in with really one of the most important things that I found between me and my husband as we've been foster parents, and that is to debrief. If at all, debrief daily with your spouse about how it is going in your home. So my husband and we do this often. We try to do it every morning now that he's retired and he's home a lot. And we try to really just talk about what is good, what is going well, what is going not so well in our home. We talk about specific kids and maybe things that we could do better, or maybe areas that we see something in a child where there's a need and maybe the other spouse doesn't see that need. And we get to discuss that and sit down and debrief. We also go over the schedule for the day. We talk about what is our day going to look like? Let's get ready. Let's make an action plan. How many appointments do we have? Where do we need to drive to today? What are we going to do with the other kids as one is transporting or commuting a child to a doctor's appointment? And we have just found that this is super helpful because it really gets us on the same page. Instead of waking up and one is going one way and one parent is going a different way, and we kind of really lose focus with where the other one is, and we're like two ships going in the night in different directions, it starts us out on the same path. And even if we're not together all day, and if we're busy and don't even see each other till the evening, it really makes us understand what each other's day looks like, how they are benefiting and helping the core nucleus of our family. And it makes us really appreciate and make us accountable to our partner and the person that we're with, so that we can be more successful as foster parents. The second tip that I would say that has helped us a lot as we have really worked on our relationship as foster parents would be to discuss what our needs are. And I would add in quotes also, to do that honestly. In a relationship, it can be so easy to kind of put our best foot forward, especially if you're first and newly married and you want to kind of impress your spouse and pretend like you have it all together and everything's going fine. But the longer that we've been married, we've been realizing it's just so vital to be honest with one another. We find that as time goes on, we can stuff things and pretend like we're doing well, even if we're not, but those things will build up and they will come out and affect the relationship, our marriage, how we parent, what we do, really even our own health and our own really well-being. And so it is vital to really talk to one another and to say what our needs are and to express our wants within that relationship. So practically, what does that look like? That can look like, I am really exhausted. After I drive to this appointment, I'm going to need some time. I'm going to need a break. Or it may look like, I am just not getting the house done. I need some help, some outside help to come in. Or maybe I haven't slept in a month or a couple months. Or even in our case, we had a child that we didn't sleep for 3 years straight. Honestly, it's crazy, and they still don't always sleep. And so one of those expressed needs may be, I need to take a nap today, or tonight, instead of visiting with you and sitting down and really having time together, I need to go to bed early. This is what I need for my body and my health. It may mean for the guys or for the women, I need time out with my friends. I need time to step away. Or I need accountability in a certain area. And so what does that look like? To express your needs honestly and openly with one another. It is vital in the health of the relationship so that we can be excellent foster parents. So the third tip that I would say to help you prioritize your relationship as a foster parent or a foster family would be to give each other space. And this is one of those things that I'm sharing really not out of all of our wisdom, but really out of us learning a lesson as we fostered over the years. At the beginning, we really wanted to tough it out. My husband and I went in this with really this kind of warrior mindset that we're going to do this, and it's going to be you and me, and we're going to take on whatever kids God gives us, and we're going to do this well. But over the years, what we've realized is to vocalize when we need a break and to make sure to give each other a break. It is vital to the relationship, to the health of the family, and to the health of the children, really, at the end of the day. So giving each other space. So what are some practical examples of that? It may be for me to go to my room instead of sit down and eat dinner with the family as we get ready to eat, to say, I'm going to go to my room and have some quiet time. It may look like in the morning saying, we need to go away into a different room and to pray, or we need to take a walk, or we need to go visit with a family member on the phone to really get our headspace clear and to get outside of the situation. Because I know that fostering sometimes can feel like it's a spiral, that we can kind of feel out of control as the pressures increase and the time that we spend with the kids increases and the amount of energy that we give and disperse to our family increases. We need to have space to separate ourselves so that we can come back and actually be better foster parents. So give your spouse space. The fourth tip that I would give you to help you strengthen your relationship as foster parents would be to not let the kids in your home triangulate. So what does triangulate mean? The actual definition is to manipulate. It means to divide and to conquer. It can involve indirect communication behind another parent's back, to go with them against that other parent, or even subtly, in subtle ways, to come and kind of align with one parent and to make one parent the bad guy. Of all the list of toxic behaviors, this possibly could be the worst one that there is. And this doesn't just happen with foster kids. It can happen in all kinds of families, in all kinds of situations. What I've seen a lot is when we've had toddlers in our home, it's almost natural that as they're 2 or 3, even if you've given them hours of time, the moment that you're on the phone or you sit down to talk with your spouse, that toddler will come right up and sit right in between you and demand attention of one specific parent. However, I've noticed with kids that have been in foster care, there can be greater insecurities, there can be a lack of trust, there can be a need to align to ensure their position or their ability to stay in a home, or even their ability to be safe or to feel safe. And so they may consciously or unconsciously come and align with a parent in a home and kind of pivot or go against that other parent. So what are some of the ways to combat practically triangulation in your home? One of the things that we have found that works really, really well is when a child comes up and maybe talks to us, or maybe kind of back talks, or kind of is derogatory to that other parent, we will look that child in the eyes and we will tell them, don't talk about that other parent, or don't go against that other parent, because me and that parent, we are a team. We make it clear right from the get-go that me and my husband, we are united and we are going to conquer and parent from a position of love in our household, and no child or foster child or any other individual will come to break that bond. It is really a powerful message that you send to a child. You don't say it out of anger or out of spite or frustration. You just simply say it out of love. You know what? We are a team. And that seems really effective against triangulation. A second tactic that we have found that really works against triangulation is that we always confirm decisions with our other spouse when it comes to especially foster kids, but even our biological and our adopted kids. So if one child says, hey, you know, dad said I could go here. Is that okay, mom? And I'll always say, let me check with your dad. Let me make sure that we're on the same page before we make big decisions to move forward. If you have a child that maybe has honesty issues, always check with them. Maybe a child that said, dad said I could have 3 cookies instead of 2. And they go to grab another one. I'll say, just a minute and let me check with that other parent. It just helps to keep both parents really on the same page, and it keeps you unified as a common front. And the third really practical way that we do not allow triangulation in our home is that we never, ever, ever allow bad talking of the other parent. We don't allow snickering against that parent or belittling comments, or a child to kind of put that parent down. If you're driving in the car with one parent and they tend to be mad or frustrated at that second parent, we don't allow them to have any negative words or feedback about that other parent. That may be a position that they can discuss with a therapist or with a friend, or they can write in a journal, or they can discuss it with both spouses together sitting in the living room, or with that person directly. But to never take the other spouse separate and aside and go against verbally that other parent. It is just another way that we have helped to really ward off triangulation in our home. The fifth way that we have just really practically been able to keep our marriage strong as we have become foster parents for the past 16 years is that we have prioritized our relationship. And again, this is another one that we didn't do super well at the beginning. It can be really hard as a foster parent to find people that will watch foster kids, or who can maybe understand foster kids' behaviors, or just understand just really the full grasp of their story. Often no one else knows the fullness of a child's story. And so as foster parents, I think we can be really protective over our foster kids. We can find that it's really hard to leave them, or to get a babysitter, or even a grandma and grandpa to watch our kids. And as a result, our relationship and our marriages can struggle because of that. And so I would really encourage you to find a way to get a babysitter, whether it's someone at your church, whether it's a support group or a MOPS group or a preschool group, or time, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, to where you and your spouse can have time alone. Again, often my husband and I do this really early in the morning, but there are times where my kids will take naps, and then my older kids will be home, and we'll run to the grocery store, or we'll take a quick walk when we know they're safe and they're in good hands. Sometimes you have to be super creative to find time to get away. As a foster parent, I know that it can be really difficult, especially if you have a lot of kids and your house is really full. But I realize the better parent that we're going to be as a foster parent to our kids really depends on how much we prioritize our marriage and our relationship. That we can't parent well if our primary relationship, which is our spouse, is not healthy and whole. My husband and I also like to take overnight trips or sometimes week-long trips. It was about every year or every 2 years. We would even fly internationally. We would go to China or to Peru or Guatemala or Dominican Republic. We would fly out of the country and really get respite, or our older kids or grandparents or whoever we needed to be able to watch our kids. Sometimes it was last minute when we were in between placements. We would say, this is a great time. Let's book tickets. Let's get away so that we can have time, just the two of us. And that seems to really help our relationship. We have something positive to look back on and to remember, and to really build and grow and strengthen our relationship, to remember why we chose each other, why we chose this journey of foster parents, and really to focus on the good parts of one another in our relationship as a foster family. The sixth thing that I would encourage you to do as you prioritize your relationship as a foster family is to be your spouse's biggest cheerleader. And I know this kind of sounds cliche, and we might read it in all the books about marriage or relationships. Cheer them on. And really, honestly, I've heard it in the past and I just kind of thought, well, that's just silly. But as the years have gone on, I personally, someone who loves words, have found that this is probably one of the biggest things that has encouraged me as a foster parent. As I've heard my husband say great things about how I'm parenting the kids when I just think I'm having a really bad day or just really doing an awful job in a certain area. And I hear him say, I can see that you're really trying, or I can see how much time you're spending on this. It may seem like a total failure. It may seem like I'm really crashing and burning, and yet he can find a word and something encouraging and positive about what I've done as a foster parent. And that has made all the world of a difference to me. So why do we need this encouragement? Because honestly, as foster parents, a lot of times we hear the negative. We hear the negative from the schools that call us, or the principals, or the counselors. We may hear the negative from social workers, or from judges, or from birth parents. We may hear the negative from the children. We may hear a lot of negative from the children, maybe from our biological family or our other adopted kids. And it can feel sometimes like the straw that broke the camel's back, to where it just weights on us little by little. But when we get encouragement, it's like it frees us. It takes off some of that weight, and it makes us remember who we are and the good things about what we're doing as foster parents. And as we encourage and cheer on our spouses, it also shifts something in our heads. It helps us to see and to remember and to notice and really prioritize, to find out and really be conscious of what our spouse is doing that is good. So be your spouse's biggest cheerleader. That will help strengthen your relationship as you are foster parents. The seventh tip that I would give you to help prioritize your relationship as foster family is to not stuff your feelings. And this kind of goes along with some of the other ones that talks about really sitting down and discussing your day and debriefing and communicating. But this is really important because we can speak with our spouse, we can discuss things with our spouse, and we can talk all day long with our spouse. But if we're hiding our feelings, if we are living on the surface and again pretending that everything is okay, we are going to have a real hard time later on. In a marriage and in relationships as a foster family, we deal with a lot of deeper emotions than maybe the average person, the average family. Maybe an average family deals with, really regular loss or grief or sadness, but as a foster family, it sometimes feels like that is magnified by 1,000. We have grief when kids come into care because we deal with the child's grief. And then maybe when the children leave our care, whether they go back to a biological family or have to change homes or go to be adopted, there's another added layer of grief and loss that we have to go through. And if we are stuffing those feelings, it can be super hard for us and our spouse and the family that is still with us when that foster child leaves. We can feel big emotions. We can feel frustration at the system, at the biological family, at the child. And if we're just trying to be happy and have it all together and we're balancing the plates and trying to make it feel like everything's okay, eventually everything is going to come crashing down. It is okay to get frustrated. It is okay to have hard days. It is okay even sometimes to be upset at the system or at a circumstance that you're going through as a foster family. And don't stuff your feelings when it comes to how you feel about a foster child who's in your home. Naturally, there are some foster parents and some foster kids that naturally bond and connect more than other ones. Sometimes children are resistant against a certain gender or a certain person because of maybe a physical feature like a beard, or maybe their position in their home, such as being a mother, if they've had aggression or past regrets or harm from someone of that same gender or a position of authority. But to not take that personal and to be able to vent those out is just really helpful to the relationship. And if you need additional help or support, maybe counseling, maybe you need therapy, maybe you need time with friends to sit down and vent those things, even though that directly doesn't seem like it affects the relationship or the marriage, it actually does, because it really lifts off some of that weight of frustration that you may be feeling about fostering in general, about your spouse or how they're handling a situation, or even about a child that's in your home. And so make sure to really deal with those feelings that are deeper, because in the long run, that will help your relationship as you are a foster parent. And the 9th tip that will help you to prioritize your relationship as you are foster parents is this. And get ready for it, because I hear this happen all the time. And it is to not take a foster child without your spouse's consent. And yes, I've heard that this has happened and it has become successful in some situations, but more often than not, it can be a train wreck. It can be awful. It can be detrimental to your relationship, to your home, to the peace that's in your household, and even to the other kids that are already in your house. Unity is absolutely vital when it comes to fostering and being a foster parent. So if you have one foster parent that is like, let's go take this placement, or the sibling group of 5, and the other foster parent says, no, maybe just one, and maybe a child without as many behaviors, I don't think we can handle this. It is so important that you wait to take that placement until you both are on the same page. And maybe that means taking a placement of 3 or of 2, or with middle behaviors that aren't so extreme, but that also aren't minimal. Maybe that requires you discussing and coming together to sit down at the table or sit on the couch and discuss the placement and your heart and why you want to take a placement. Again, it may require outside counseling, outside support. It may require you getting the child's file and sitting down and discussing the behaviors or the situation of that specific child's circumstance. I used to be so afraid of saying no to a foster placement. I thought if I say no, they're never going to give me another foster placement ever again. I needed to say yes. I had this big weight that I had to take every child that came into my home or every call that they offered me a child. And I've come to learn that there will always be other foster children. There will always be more placements. There will always be more kids that are going to be in need of your home. So don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to wait until you and your spouse are on the same page. Make sure to be unified and to say yes together. That will prioritize, and it will validate, and it will support your marriage as you move forward as a foster family. And the 10th tip to help prioritize your marriage as you become a licensed foster parent is this. And I say this probably in every single video, but it is to pray. And it is to pray fervently, not just pray on your own or pray when no one's looking. It is to sit down with your spouse and pray. It is something that my husband and I have practiced from when we first took our first foster placement. We've sat down and prayed together before we've taken a child, because maybe we think like we should take a placement, but maybe that's not God's will, or maybe that wasn't what we were supposed to have, or maybe we were scared to take a foster placement because it looked too big or the needs were too great. And as we've humbled ourselves and bowed our heads and we began to pray, we realized that it's really not about us, that there's someone bigger that equips us and sustains us and will provide as we say yes to a foster placement. You may be surprised at what God tells you as you prioritize your relationship as a foster parent. You may do bigger and greater things than you ever thought were imaginable as you use really time together in prayer for each other, for your foster children, and for yourself to really humble your heart and seek His will. It will unify you and it will make your relationship stronger as you go on to foster children. And these are my final thoughts. There are some things that I wish me and my husband would have done so different when we first started fostering. I think when we took our first placements, we were so consumed with this idea of a child not having a home, or maybe a child coming with an injury, or maybe a child crying in need, and knowing that God had put us in that position to care for the needs of that particular child. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel really all-consuming and all-focused. But what we have found is as we have stepped away from this calling, as we have given ourselves space or traveled or taken walks or prayed together, we have realized, number one, is to prioritize each other in the relationship. Because at the end of the day, foster kids, they can come and they can go. Maybe some will stay, but a lot of them will revolve through your house. But the one constant, the one person that God has put there for you, the one person to be most unified in and to prioritize the relationship is that of your marriage and that of your spouse. So I hope some of these tips have helped you in your marriage to prioritize it as you've been a foster family. Maybe you have other tips. I would love to hear those. Please put those in the comments below. And again, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, like this video, and we will see you next time. Remember, go out, live bold, and be brave. Thanks so much for watching.